உள்ளதல உள்ள உணர் உள்ளதோ உள்ள பொருள் உள்ளலர உள்ளத்தே உள்ளதா உள்ளம் எனும் உள்ள பொருள் உள்ளல் எவன் உள்ளத்தே உள்ளபடி உள்ளதே உள்ளல் உணர்வாயே. Namo Ramana. With Bhagwan's immense grace, we have been meditating on the verses of Ulladu Narpadu. We have moved on from the Viveka and Abhyasa to the Anubhava segment. We are in verse number 36. நாம் உடலன் ரெண்டின் அல நாம் அதுவென்றெண்ணும் அது நாம் அதுவா நிற்பதற்கு நற்றுணையே யாமென்று நாம் அதுவென்றெண்ணுவதேன் நான் மனிதன்றென்றெண்ணுமோ நாம் அதுவா நிற்குமதனால் அறியாதே முயலும். It appears to be similar in line to two other verses. The sadhana verse 29. நான் என்று வாயால் நவிலாதுள் ஆழ்மனத்தால் நான் என்றெங் குந்துமென நாடுதலே ஞான நெறி ஆமன்றி அன்றிது நான் நாம் அதுவென் ருண்ண துணையா அது விசாரமா. So what is vicharam? நான் என்றெங் குந்துமென, from where the I rises to seek that source is the jnana neri, says Bhagavan. Then again, என்றும், no, the அது நீ என்றம்மறைகள் ஆர்த்திடவும் தன்னை எதுவென்று தான் தேர்ந்திரா தது நான் இது அன்றென்றெண்ணல் உரன் இன்மையினால் என்றும் அதுவே தானாயமர்வதாலே. It appears as though it is a repeat of those themes that the vichara is clarified over dhyana. But when we find this in the Anubhava segment and after verses like Siddhamai Ulpurulai, Terndiruttal Siddhi Pira, Siddhiyalam, Soppanamar Siddhigale, Nidhirai Vittorndal Avai Meiyo, உண்மை நிலை நின்று பொய்மை தீர்ந்தார் தியங்கு வரும் என்றும் எவர்க்கும் இயல்பாய் உளப்பொருளை ஒன்றும் உளத்துள் உணர்ந்த நிலை நின்றிடாது. When we see that this verse, we find after the Anubhava of the Rishi mentioned in the form of ஒன்றும் உளத்துள் உணர்ந்த நிலை நின்றிடாது உண்டின்றொருவருவன் ஒன்றிரண்டன்றென்றே சண்டையிடன் மாயை சழக்கொழிக சித்தமாய் உள்பொருளை தேர்ந்திருத்தல் சித்தி. When we find நாம் உடலென் ரெண்ணின் அல நாமதுவென் ரெண்ணுமது நாமதுவாய் நிற்பதற்கு நற்றுணையே, it hits us like a blast that Bhagavan is saying that when you are cutting off the trouble at the source itself, where is the need to go to the next level for support? That is, the intent is not on the letting go of the support, but the intent in this verse is to reveal to us the magnificence of the Atma Vichara. Only if you think I am the body, that is the Namudalen Rendin. That one word, Namudalen Rendin, that is the import of this verse. That one word is the rest are all supportive to that one word. That one word, Namudalan Rendin. Only when you have risen and identified with the body, Ala Namaduvan Rendumadu. Of course, the verse is referring to meditating on the Brahman as Aham Brahmasmi. But we can extend it to any other duty or sadhana or dharma where becoming is involved. I feel I have fallen into some habit of, let us see, I get angry often, or I have this habit of talking ill of others. Then I want to, that is what I have, Nam Udal. I am that Sukshma Sharira, which identifies with some habit which we want to get rid of. Then the practice is aimed at Namadu. I am not this person. I am not this person who gets angry. I am not this person who talks ill of his friends. There is the sadhana that is required to become something else. But is that sadhana required if you do, who am I? If Namudalan endin itself is cut off, that correction of anger, correction of some other fault is automatically covered in this. The same can be extended to any other becoming that we do, the area of becoming. That I am like this, I want to become that. And whatever we become is something newly attained. And Bhagavan says, whatever is newly attained will also be lost. Therefore, what is it that the who am I brings in? When we look at that and look at that very carefully, it is an extraordinary support that Bhagavan brings in who am I, that you don't need any other support. You don't need the support of any thought. There is one such finding, that there is a support of a totally different dimension than the thinker, thinking and thought, that is present in ancient Greek thought also. They say there is something called as the unmoved mover. The unmoved mover is what we call as akandakara vritti or spurana. The spurana is not moved by something, according to them, is not moved by something, but is capable of moving everything else. It is the original cause, it is the middle cause, it is the final cause of everything. Because it is the cause that is ever present. So they call God as the unmoved mover. Bhagavan gives it to us as spurana. But Bhagavan doesn't stop there with the spurana. Spurana is Shakti, is Parvati Amman, to whom we hold and surrender. Hold the spurana and be quiet. Don't ask anything of that Shakti. Then it will take you to Shiva, just as Amma is supposed to have meditated in Tiruvannamalai. and has merged in Arunachala, the same stage or state of source of everything, that is, even this Purana quietening down, will be blessed on us by that Purana or by the presence of the self, in whatever way you want to tell it. So, what is it that is this Purana? What is its difference with the Jiva? The Jiva is the I thought that is outward turned, that is not looking at itself, forgets its own presence and looks at other things, other objects. What is this Purana? This Purana is the energy that is totally self-attentive. Even in the Greek, the contemplation, they say self-contemplation is the highest contemplation. So they come up to the Shakti. The self-contemplation is the highest contemplation, because the consciousness is attending on its own presence as the unmoved mover, the self-attentive radiation, which creates the Sannidhi, in which everything takes place. The explanation for going for this sadhana, how do we get the explanation from Bhagavan? That you do this, that's enough. You don't need to hold even one other thought like Aham Brahmasmi. What is it that allows us to hold directly the who am I? Bhagavan gives us the explanation in the work who am I. The question to Bhagavan is all this not the doing of Ishvara? Implying the whole creation, is it not the doing of Ishvara? That is when the Shankara's Drishtantam of the Surya and the works of human beings is taken by Bhagavan. Shankara also takes that Drishtantam to explain how in the presence of the Atma, everything functions. All the functions take place, that the outward actions in the sensory world, how they take place in the presence of the Surya, the outward actions and the internal actions of the Indriyas. We have of course seen that the inner organs are of a higher dimension. The outer organs, outward turned attention is in a three-dimensional world. The inner organs are of higher dimension. When it is completely inward turned, the outward world can be like a shadow. Now, what does Bhagavan say? That Namudalan endin, that you don't even need to think I am the body, that you have to keep inquiring who am I alone, is that the Sannidhi of Ishvara, the Sannidhi of this Purana is the presence in which all the 5 types of work, creation, maintenance, destruction, veiling of the truth and liberation, they all take place in the Sannidhi. Sannidhi means there is not even the nature of witnessing there. That there is only the inward turned attention of the Shakti that creates a Sannidhi. And what is the nature of that Sannidhi? It is completely neutral and it removes all good and bad, it removes karma. Like that is the Sannidhi where Paul Brunton comes and he finds that his whole list of questions vanishes in that Sannidhi. All those questions are the karma of the intellect. And the karma of the intellect are completely quieted in Bhagavan's presence, which is that Mauna, where the self-attention creates a presence in which The Ishvara has no sankalpa or karma, says Bhagavan. The Ishvara is merely doing the highest contemplation. If one were to refer to the Greeks once again, the highest contemplation being the self-contemplation, then Bhagavan doesn't even stop there. Bhagavan says, because if we stop with the prime mover, then even by experience, the Spurana has various gradations. The Spurana, when we are listening to something, when we are meditating, the Spurana increases or decreases. When we are in the emotional quotient, then it becomes a healing force. So there are different stages of the Spurana. The Shakti can be more or can be less. In fact, it is everything. In fact, it is the whole of manifestation. But then we are talking of the self-attentive Shakti, that in Bhagavan quietens down when you as sadhaka don't ask anything from it. And it quietens down as the self. In that self, there is not even this Spurana, says Bhagavan to Devaraj Mudalayar in one of the exchanges in Day by Day with Bhagavan. That is the whole content that we find in this one word, that Nam Udalan Rendin. We can even come to the same point, the importance of Nam Udalan Rendin, from the definition of the ego versus that Karuvam Ahandai Undayin Anaithum Undahum. Ahandai Indrel Indranaithum. Ahandaye Yavumam Adalal Yadidendru Nadale Ovudal Yavumena. It is the simultaneous renunciation of everything. This morning we were discussing in one of the satsangs that was a question that used to come to me in 2000, maybe some years there, the early years 2006, 2007, when I used to get this question: why did B.V. Narasimha Swami have to go to the Samadhi of Shirdi Sai Baba and then realize the self? Of course, Bhagavan gave me an answer to quieten me. He gives us answers also along with self-inquiry. The Samadhana was, don't the devotees of Sai Baba need self-inquiry? So that was a Samadhana I had. But then, as we inquire into the self, there is nothing like Ramana's self, Sai Baba's self, Shiva's self, or any other self, Murugar's self. There is only the self. So the Nam Udalan Rendin, only if you think like that, these differences come. Am I now not faithful to my Guru? Am I living Bhagavan? Am I taking something else? Am I living the Venkatachalapati Japa that I was doing? All that come only when the I thought arises. And those are not ordinary questions in sadhana, because they are concerned with the deepest of our faith questions. We find that the I is the same. And which I is Bhagavan asking us to hold? He is asking us to hold that I which is there within all the deities. So all the confusions or disturbances we may get, whether we are faithful to our Guru or not, are solved in this one thought, Namudalan Rendin. Only if you think I am the body, the rest of the things arise. That this Guru is different, that Guru is different. And where is Bhagavan bringing us? He is bringing us to a place where absolutely it is free of all these things. Namudalan Rendin Ala, Namaduven Rendumadu. Only if this is left, you will have to hold on to the Nama or mantra as a thought. See how remarkably healing, remarkably protective, remarkably supportive this one sadhana is. That so many of our doubts which could hold us in the path of objective holding, when we hold the object and come, so many doubts seem to arise. Is this right? Is that wrong? Did I do it by Bhagavan's Upadesham or not? All these things are simultaneously attended to. Not they are ignored. Not that they are bypassed. They are all attended to when we catch hold of the rise of the I in the root itself. Namudalan, why should we think? Why should we think that we are the body? Because it opens up all these problems. The Pandora's box literally is there, and it is a spiritual Pandora's box. This is right, that is wrong, that should not have been done, this has been done. All those questions come to a rest by this one sadhana, that Namudalan Rendin. Only if you think like that, you have to go to the next step. Ala, Namaduvan Rendu Madu. To think that I will do the meditation on Bhagavan's feet. I will do the Parayana of Bhagavan's works. Not that we should not do, we will do. It is part and parcel of our journey that in Atma Vicharam, all the sadhanas have their part. None of the sadhanas are rejected. All the sadhanas and where they come in is also clearly understood. When somebody asks Bhagavan the question, while doing self-inquiry, I go into sleep. I feel sleepy and I go into sleep. What am I to do? Bhagavan says, of course, in sleep you can do no sadhana. So do Nama Sankirtana, says. Do Nama Sankirtana. Now, Shankara goes one step further to say that even if you walk and offer that walking to God, that becomes the pradakshina of the cosmos. That is, if you feel sleepy in Atma Vichara, you can do the simple act of getting up and walking, but remembering Bhagavan and offering that walk to Bhagavan. That sadhana is also included in Atma Vicharam. Not only that, we have seen that when the sadhaka is not able to do Durbal ka bal Ram, Bhagavan himself comes. Bhagavan himself comes, his nama, his japa, one of his works from Ulladu Narpadu or Anubandham, one of his words will come and support the sadhaka. So all the sadhanas are included. But when we do Atma Vicharam, the confusions regarding the sadhanas are removed. That they are all supportive to my holding of the I. They are all supportive to the holding of my I. And even if you have begun with self-inquiry, then this clarity starts coming in. That there is a point in me where the I is stilled. What is the difference between Jiva and Ishvara? Irtadai tanpol achalamai sedav innuir balikolum nihtan, says Bhagavan. That Arunachala is achala. He is unmoving. What he does, like a magnet, he attracts the devotees. And what he does, Tanpol achalama sedav. The only thing Arunachala does is make you still. So what is the best way to be still? To inquire, who am I? To put the attention on oneself. When the attention wants to go after something else, turn it and put it on yourself, immediately Ishwaratva. We may feel in our sadhana days that Ishwaratva means we will go and get that done, we will go and get this done, that will be easily achieved, this will get sanctioned like nothing. But Ishwaratva is the still consciousness which permeates everything. He doesn't have a single sankalpa, says Bhagavan. Ishvara doesn't have a single sankalpa, and all the activities, he is not going to intervene in every prayer. It is the Sannidhi of the Ishvara in which all that takes place. The prayer is efficacious. It is efficacious because the Ishvara's Sannidhi is there. So those are all sadhanas which get their efficacy from the presence of the Sannidhi. But from where does the Sannidhi arise? It is from the power of self-attention. And what does the self-attention originate from? It originates from the silence of the self. Where does self-inquiry take us? It takes us directly to this Purana. And does self-inquiry allow us to ask anything of this Purana? No. The self-attention is to merely hold this Purana or inquire who is experiencing this Purana, where the silence of the Atman is our reality, is understood. Only when that is not done, only, let us say even that, only when that has not even been begun. Because even if it is begun, we understand the place of the other sadhanas, that they don't have the content of confusing us. Am I doing that? Am I right or wrong? Those questions are not there. That the Atma Vicharam clears up all that. That they are all supportive. When the mind is ready for that alone, when it is not ready for the Atma Vichara, then with Ishvara's grace, we do those sadhanas. We participate in that and it steadies us because it gives us ekagrata, it purifies us. Then the Atma Vicharam, it removes the necessity for holding on to any thought at all. Namudalan Rennin. Only if you come to that level, only if you become into the moving area of I am this body, then Namaduven Rennumadu, Namaduvai Nirpadarku Natrunaye. All the Parayana, all the Japa that we have done. I had shared with the group that, I had shared with Kanakamal in our first meeting that I was practicing self-inquiry and was interested in that. Once she had seen me, she used to come and sit in the in that hall, at the edge of the hall, when the Parayanam is going on. And she had seen me participating in the Parayanam. And immediately next day, somehow, only 4 or 5 times I have met her. And next day I have met her. And she asked, were you not telling that you were interested in self-inquiry? What are you doing in Parayanam? Now, those are the pointers that they give in pushing us inward. Not that Parayanam by itself cannot take us to the self. That is not what is intended. Like we were discussing this morning, how in my own case, that Venkatachalapati's Nama was given as Japa. Venkatachalapati's Nama was given as Japa for me, and I used to do that for nearly 3 years or so, morning 1 hour, evening 1 hour, and I would be able to go to the temple nearby, Venkatachalapati temple, see Abhishekam, do all that. Then without even knowing that I have stopped doing Japa, I was shifted to observing the mind. So I was sharing this morning that we clearly have come across many of Muktas getting liberated in Tirupati under Venkatachalapati's presence. There are many Muktas who have written about their experiences there. There are many accounts by our peri world about the greatness of Tirupati. But in my case, it had that greatness of that mantra it had this purpose of bringing me to observing thoughts. And from there, who am I took over. So that once you come to who am I, the whole journey starts falling in place. That though those mantras by themselves might have given mukti to some people, for me it has played this role. Now I have come to Namudalan Ennuvathu Seriya. Is it necessary to rise as the I thought? This is the Mula to which those mantras also will bring. This is the final toll gate which Bhagavan has shown me as the only thing to be attended to. So understand that the depth of self-inquiry, and whenever we remember it, we can take it that Bhagavan is reminding us and start the practice. Whenever we remember self-inquiry, start the practice of Atma Ucharam. For whom is this thought? Then that first word we take care of. We are not thinking as Udal. When we come to that area, then Namaduven Renuvadu, Namaduvai Nirpadarku Natrunaye. 100% that those sadhanas are all efficacious as supports. Why? The same, let me come back to my own journey, that there was a competition in my daughter's school in the year 96 or 97, where one of the books given by the institution, that is Ramana Maharshi Center for Learning, who were conducting the competitions, one of the books was on Bhagavan. It had biography of Bhagavan and teachings of Bhagavan. Small booklet, I have got that even now. I took my daughter through that book so that she would be able to participate in the quiz. My aim was that she should come and get the participation certificate or whatever rank certificates that they give. I did not understand anything about the who am I there. The who am I have underlined those things. I have underlined and told her that it is something connected with my emancipation itself was not understood. There was this instrument purification was not yet through. I had to go through. After that only the japa came, the observation of thoughts came. Only when I got stuck in observation of thoughts, that which had come earlier without my recognition of it came back again. The who am I came, and with the force that this is the meaning of who am I. So Namudalan Rennin Ala Namaduven Renuvadu Namaduva Nirpadarku Natrunaye. The japa, the meditation, the observation of thoughts, all those things are helpful in preparing us for who am I. But once you have come here, the question Bhagavan is asking is not why you have done all that. No, obviously not. What Bhagavan is asking here is that once you have come to this, once you have understood about who am I, the efficacy of it, why should you go back? Why should you resort to the meditation on Aham Brahmasmi? Namaduva Nirpadarku Natrunaye Yamendru Namaduven Renduvade Nan Manidan Endrenumo. In Atma Bodha, it is said that the Jnani will not keep repeating Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham. He will be the Brahman. That is the teaching that Bhagavan is also giving. That he will be the Brahman. Now, is there a drishtanta for us? Is there an experience or an example for us? Nan Manidan Endrenumo is the example. And it is a very appropriate example which we can easily relate to. Like when we act as human beings. Of course, we may slip into aggression. We may rise into some divinity. some compassion of extraordinary nature. But generally speaking, this Manidan seems to be a bandwidth in consciousness. It is a bandwidth to which we have raised and identified, and let us say on an average we remain in that bandwidth. So there is no necessity to tell that we are humans. That bandwidth identity is there of consciousness. Of course, there are the abnormal behaviors which we try to address, and when psychology says it is going to do therapy, it is not healing to the spiritual self. It is bringing within this acceptable bandwidth. What is the acceptable bandwidth of behavior? To that, psychology tries to give some therapy and bring us within that acceptable bandwidth. But no one says that I am human being, I am human being. Similarly, the Brahman, the identity with the Spurana, the silence, that is beyond all the bandwidths. That is beyond all the bandwidths. That definitely doesn't need any affirmation like I am Brahman, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, I am Brahman. It is only realizing that the ego is completely vanished, all the supports needed by it have fallen down, and now one is shining as the Atma Swarupa, the shining of which alone lent light to the inner organs, lent light to the outer world. If in a sunny day you lie under a tree and go to sleep, the sun is not there, is not felt. Therefore, consciousness is a greater sun than the physical sun. Someone asks in the talks to Bhagavan, is the inner consciousness of the same nature as the sunlight? Bhagavan says sunlight is inert. The inner consciousness is Chaitanya. Without inner consciousness, sunlight has no existence, no presence. Therefore, we are going to a dimension far greater than the sensory dimension. Only when you identify with this body, you have to take that thought, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi, and we had seen that any other sadhana also to improve one within the bandwidth, that I am a degree holder now, let me be a postgraduate. That is also a becoming, that you identify, no, I don't want to be satisfied with degree, I want to go doctorate. That is an improvement within. But Narchirappiyavilum Jnana Nishtai Mudalidam. Out of all the degrees and titles you can get, the Jnana Nishtai, the identity with the Spurana, takes the first place, says Sadhuvam Swamigal. And that precludes the need for any of these titles. The non-raising as the I, that precludes the need for any of these titles or the holding of Aham Brahmasmi. Therefore, the whole verse falls in place, and that is why the importance of this verse here in the Anubhava segment. Namudalan Rendin Ala Namaduvan Rendumadu Namaduvai Nirpadarka Natrunaye. That refers to all the sadhanas we have done. All the sadhanas we have done up to coming to who am I, including following the Guru, I am following Ramana Maharshi, and I am following so and so Guru. Those thoughts are also not there in who am I. That what is the real nature of Bhagavan? The real nature of Bhagavan is the unchanging I within each one of us. Who is Bhagavan? When asked, Bhagavan says, Haryaditara Jivara Ahavarisa Guhail Arivai Rami Paramatman Arunachala Ramanan. Arivai Rami Paramatman. When we combine that with the verse in Ulladu Narpadu, which says, Tanmay Undel Munnilai Padarkaigal Tamulavam. We have to slow that down and take it. That Tanmai Undel, only when you raise as the I, Munnilai Padarkaigal Tam. It appears to be a very innocuous verse, but it is very, very powerful in the sense that only after you raise Ramana, Sai Baba, Basavana, all those names also arise only after that. That only after the first person arises, those names also. When those names arise, what is your duty to do? Only if you raise as I, you will be confused whether I am a devotee of Ramana, a follower of Ramana or not, or I am a follower. Am I being a proper disciple for him? That doubt will come when? Only when you raise as the I. Only Namudalan Rendin. Now, that doubt itself is, you don't need to hold that thought that I am a Ramana devotee and be the real devotee of Ramana. By being one with him, that you hold that before it rises. So the first person where Bhagavan is asking, that first person is the first person after whom even the divine names arise. So this is even more efficacious than holding on to a divine name. That to ask, who am I? In what sense we are going to the Atman of that name. I had shared in the group that there was a Rama Bhakti who had started getting the Rama Nama as Adapa. It was going on effortlessly. Then we found that she had come to self-inquiry only with Rama's grace. When Rama felt that she was ready to abide in the self of Rama, Rama himself brings that devotee to the final toll gate of letting go of the one holding on to the Nama and abiding in the self of all. To be the self of all is the final state. And when you are holding that, these confusions also, am I holding on to the right Nama? Am I being faithful to my Guru or not? Those doubts also fall away, and they are very important doubts which can dislodge us in our sadhana. Those are also removed, and one is able to rest in the one question: for whom is this thought? And as we keep practicing, we understand the depth of the sadhana. That whatever objective appears, even if it is the name of the divine which permeates the whole ocean, it is the Taraka mantra we are talking of. Ramana Nama is Taraka mantra. Rama Nama is Taraka mantra. But Bhagavan's gift of who am I removes one significant thing, that is holding this Taraka mantra better or that Taraka mantra better. That doubt is also not there, because this is the essence of all the Taraka mantras. The who am I? Namudalan Rendin. Then the holding of the Taraka mantra has some meaning. But if you are doing self-inquiry, even those Taraka mantras are not required to be held, and they will all come in support. All the Taraka mantras that are ever present, they will all come in support to the one holding the I, because this is the self of all. This is the unmoved mover. Not even that. This is the self beyond any movement. This unmoved mover and the self. Let us look at it a little bit. Ganapati Muni, in his interpretation, is said to have taken, according to one of the talks, that the Atman has Swagata Beda. Swagata Beda means the movement within itself. The I. Somebody asks Bhagavan, Ganapati Muni says so, that the Atman has Swagata Beda. Bhagavan clarifies, there is no such thing in Shankara's teachings, and therefore no such thing in my teachings also, that there is no Swagata Beda, that there is no need for this Purana also. The power of this, it is required. The Spurana is required to put aside the Triputi. All the Triputis of knower, knowing, known, seer, seeing, sin has to collapse into the Purana. But Spurana is also not the final state. The final state in Bhagavan is the silence, where the Swagata Beda is also not there. And it is very important to understand that. Because if you take Swagata Beda is there, then the differing powers can come. The differing deities can come. Sat Pratyaya, the many Pratyayas are there, you can come. Whereas in Bhagavan, the reality is only one. That you don't need to worry which of the Swagata Vedas, which level of Swagata Veda you have to hold. When you ask who am I, that confusion is also not there. Are there many deities? No such confusion is there. Am I following? Am I being faithful to my Guru? That doubt doesn't arise. Because only after the I arises, the Veda in the divinity is there. That this divine form is different, that divine form is different, comes when the Spurana is taken to be the final state. Bhagavan teaches that the Spurana is also not the final state. Spurana is to be held and you have to not ask anything from it. Then it takes you to that silence of the self, the Shivam. This is the beauty of Atma Vicharam, which removes all kinds of klesha. Sarva klesha nivarti. Even the last of the kleshas that you could have about your faith are removed totally by Atma Vicharam. Why should we think that we are the body? Namudalan endinadane, namaduvan rendanam. Only if you think I am the body, you need some other support. But for whom is this thought? What is the source of the I? That takes us to the prime mover. That takes us from the prime mover into the self. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Let us sit in Atma Vicharam till 8 o'clock when we will listen to our President Dr. Sharadaka.
नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
Namo Ramana. Namo Ramanaka.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. Today we got a new insight into this verse in terms of the emphasis. Because normally the emphasis we look at is that, yes, the Soham Vichara or other bhavanas, Bhagavan says, right, in early 1900s when he was being questioned on this by Ganapati Muni, it is recorded, his answers are recorded in Ramana Gita, where he says that all these are bhavanas. If I say that Aham Brahmasmi, all that is not jnana, they are all bhavanas. That aspect has been dealt with by Bhagavan over there. But the emphasis which was brought home today was the first line of the verse, which says that only if you rise as I. There's one aspect of the verse which says that other bhavanas, there are some bhavanas which are supportive. That also was dwelt upon by Nandakumarji today, how the various other sadhanas are supportive. Because again and again, even in Ramana Gita, we find, even in the chapter on self-enquiry, Karshni asks Bhagavan, if one is ripe and ready for self-enquiry, can one do any other sadhana? Would it be a waste of time? So these questions arise. The proclivity to do something else, to hold on to what one is already doing or what one is accustomed to, is very strong in us. Today I was reading one of the old articles by our former president A.R. Natarajan, wherein he says we may lose out on the beauty of self-enquiry because we don't want to let go of practices which we are used to, which we are accustomed to, and which is the first such habit that we have. If we have a reluctance to let go of certain habits, which is the first habit, the first primary habit is the identification of the self with the body. We find here in this the need to hold an earlier practice which might have given us a good result. We find in the instance of Punjaji, where Punjaji was, he, as a child, he naturally used to go into samadhi, but did not understand what it was. He wanted to get back to that state once he had experienced the bliss of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And his mother, who was not conscious of what this was, she told him to do Krishna Upasana. So he did Krishna Upasana. To what extent did he do? With what earnestness? Today we heard the example of that lady devotee for whom Rama Mantra had become Ajapa. So it was like that for Punjaji. 24/7 he would do the Krishna mantra. He had synchronized it with his breathing. So, and he never even slept. He would not sleep. We have heard in the Puranas that Lakshmana remained without sleeping for 14 years during Vanvasa. Like that, Pujaji did not even sleep. He would do japa incessantly. And he had Krishna Darshana often, but only often. And he longed for it. And he came to Bhagavan. This was his sadhana. He came to Bhagavan, and when he came to Bhagavan, he asked Bhagavan, can you show Krishna to me? Then Bhagavan asked him, who wants to see Krishna? He felt, Punjaji felt Bhagavan is evading the issue. He went, though he had a beautiful experience even in Bhagavan's presence of the flowering of the heart, as it were. He could experience it. Nonetheless, he did not want to drop his earlier practices or thoughts, and he did not want to pursue the line which Bhagavan was suggesting. He went to the other side of the hill, to the Adyannamalai side, and continued his sadhana and had several darshans of Krishna and came back to Bhagavan and said, I had darshan of Krishna, as if to say, well, I don't need your help for it. I could have it on my own with my sadhana. But Bhagavan is relentless master. He asked him, okay, you had Krishna's darshan. Very good. You saw Krishna. Are you seeing him now? And he said, no, he comes and goes. Then what use is a God who comes and goes, says Bhagavan. Meaning to say, in Punjaji's case, yes, he had darshan off and on. Supposing he were to have darshan in all his waking hours also, Bhagavan would ask us, what happens to that darshan in your deep sleep? What happens to that sadhana in your deep sleep? Can it stay with you? It cannot stay with you. Even the best of sadhanas, the best of supports, cannot stay with you in your deep sleep. So Bhagavan said, what use is a God who comes and goes? Yes, of course, Punjaji was still not convinced. He went back to Chennai, and after some time he had darshan of Rama who came to his house. And then what happened? His japa came to a standstill. He was not unhappy. He was filled with peace. But he had a question which troubled him as to why the japa had come to an end. And he felt Bhagavan was connected with the ending of the japa because he had asked him, of what use is this God who comes and goes? So he came back to Bhagavan and he asked him, what happened? Why did this happen? Why did the japa come to an end? And Bhagavan very, very graciously, he told him, he said, how did you come to Tiruvannamalai? I came by train. So what happened to the train ticket? It was shown to the ticket collector and thrown away after that. Then from the station, how did you come to the ashram? I took a jatka and I came. So what happened to the jatka now? It dropped me at the ashram gate and went away. So Bhagavan said, so there was a need of a train to come up to Tiruvannamalai. Then there was need of the jatka to come to the ashram gate. Now you have arrived. Now you do not need either the jatka or the train. So he did not, he gave the emphasis that if there is the thought, that's what he is telling in the second part of the verse today. If one thinks one is the body, it is better than that to think that one is the supreme, that everything, Ashtamurti Brig Deva Pujanam, to think everything is supreme, everything is supreme. I am also the same. To think thus is better. However, it is not the best. It is not the best. This is the emphasis of today's exposition by Nanda Kumarji, that it is good. But there is a saying that the good is the enemy of the best. The good is the enemy of the best. If I feel it is good enough, then I may not improve. I may not get to the best. And if one has to get to the best, then all supports have to be let go of. This is always an example which Swami Virajananda would give us. which also I would have shared earlier, and I am sharing again in this context, that he would say that if there is a pole vaulter and he runs up to the vault holding his long pole, he runs, and then that pole is very flexible. So through the skill and practice of the pole vaulter, he will move to the top of the pole, holding it, he moves to the top of the pole and he jumps into the other side. That's how he is able to clear such a big height through the pole vault. And Swamiji would say, supposing he feels, this pole vaulter feels, oh, it is such a good pole, it is helping me to reach this height. Without this pole, I could not have reached this height. Is it right on my part to drop it and go away to the other side? If he thinks thus and tries to carry the pole with him, what will be the result? Both he and the pole will fall. Both he and the pole will fall. The purpose of the pole will be defeated actually. See, the beauty is that the purpose of the pole will not be served. It would be defeated by one's attachment to that. So, Bhagavan assures everyone, many people who have come, who have these doubts, have I left behind my early sadhana? Bhagavan says, that has only brought you here. He has assured many people saying, that has only brought you here, that has only brought you to self-inquiry. So there need not be any confusion in the case of those of us who for some reason may have been used to an earlier sadhana which brings us to self-inquiry. And that is one of the purposes served by this verse. The other purpose and the greater purpose is that to hold on to self-inquiry becomes our paramount duty, not to rise even as I. Not to rise even as I. Now, what happens in self-inquiry is the difference between another sadhana, which would be like a pole helping us to vault over, and the self-inquiry Bhagavan explains is that the self-inquiry is like the stick that stirs the funeral pyre. So it gets consumed of its own accord. A special effort to drop it is not necessary. It will get consumed of its own accord. This is one clarification that Bhagavan gives to us. So don't even rise. Why rise at all? Is a question which is being emphasized for us over here. And that brings me to one of another favorite story of mine of Jackie, the dog who used to do his tapasya watching Bhagavan. And once when Bhagavan was sitting outdoors near the well, and Jackie was disturbed by the sound of a stray dog, and Bhagavan told him, Jackie, you close your eyes. You don't get disturbed. If you close your eyes, how can you get disturbed? You close your eyes. So the point is that Bhagavan said, you do not rise. He said it even to Jackie. You do not rise. Closing your eyes, of course, this is reported by Annamala Swami, who says that Jackie closed his eyes immediately. He obeyed Bhagavan, but all of us devotees, we were trying to see where from that stray dog had come, which was disturbing Jackie. He says it with his sense of humor. But the point which Bhagavan is making is, don't rise. If the I rises, question it immediately through self-inquiry and take it back to the source, so that the irony of having to say, the intellectual level of having to say that I am the self, that is transformed into the anubhava. That is why it is the anubhava which Bhagavan is emphasizing here. All of us understand the truth, but we have to be ready to let go even that holding to that understanding in order to be able to abide. That's why, what does it mean when he says, don't even hold the Soham Vichara? It means that the understanding that we have that I am the self, that also has to be dropped. Even to understand that, the I has to rise. So, even that has to be dropped through inquiry, and abidance alone has to reign supreme by the grace of Bhagavan. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ram.
Namo Ramanaka.
Namo Ramanasa.
Ramananjali, Hridayanjali, Ramananjali, Ramananjali.